Morning, everybody. This is Brian Fink from the Church of the Resurrection, the Word from the DCC. Video 2 of our series on the Catechism, a walk through the Catechism. And I just want to start very, very briefly by kind of giving you an overview of how the Catechism is set up. I mentioned it briefly in the last video, but there are four main parts. The first is the profession of faith, I believe. The second is the celebration of the Christian mystery. The third, life in Christ. And the fourth, on Christian prayer. Now, under each of these parts, the Catechism is then broken up into sections. And then beneath those sections, the Catechism is broken up into chapters. So it's actually very systematic in its organization. So today, we're doing paragraphs 25 through 50, Part 1, Section 1, Chapter 1, Man's Capacity for God. And incidentally, I'm not sure how many paragraphs I'm going to try and get through in the course of a video, but I did do a little bit of math, and there are 2,865 paragraphs in the Catechism. If I do 25 a week, it's going to take me something like 112 weeks to get through the entire Catechism. So I may have to up that game a little bit with regard to numbers, but we'll see. I don't know. How long did it take Frodo and Sammy to get to Mordor? I don't know. All you Lord of the Rings fans, you can give me all that information later. So let's go back to Part 1, Section 1, Chapter 1. The Catechism starts out by asking the question, what does it mean to believe? And it gives a brief sort of anthropological consideration of what the human person is. Made in God's image and likeness, with free will, and with a capacity to know. That is the reason. And because we're created in God's image and likeness, and He's created us to be with Him, we have this desire to be with Him. So the very thing that makes us to be human includes this capacity and desire to know Him. So His very nature, the Catechism will say, is ordered to truth, goodness, freedom, and conscience. And it has this insatiable desire for happiness. Now, to clarify the word happiness, it's not a sense of feeling, it's not a sense of butterflies and the twittering of the stomach. It's what the Greeks would call eudaimonia. I know, it's a fancy Greek word used by Aristotle, but the happiness is a kind of fullness, a kind of human flourishing, a complete existence or a complete experience of what it means to be fully human in the best possible sense. So the challenge, the Catechism will note, is that we have this desire for happiness and we have the capacity of reason and free will. However, the human nature's free will has this opportunity that we can either choose to seek God or not. And all of us have had the experience, I think personally, of chosen to seek God and not. And we also see it played over and over in history. So, but built into us is this desire to know. And then the Catechism will say, well, what are ways that we can come to know God? The Catechism here makes a very interesting, in some ways a kind of controversial point, that human beings can come to know God through natural reason alone, without what we'll call revelation, or what the Catechism will call revelation. And it gives these ways of coming to know God through a kind of reasoning that include Thomas Aquinas' famous 5 proofs, it's better called 5 ways, but include things like the argument from movement, that there has to be this first mover of things, or the argument from contingency, which means there are things that exist that don't have to exist, but they do, and their existence is dependent upon something else. Well, if we go all the way back and things always depend on something else for existence, then would anything exist? Okay. The argument from order, you see the order and design of the universe, and then interestingly, the argument from beauty. And this, Augustine says something very beautifully. He calls the beauty of created things itself a kind of profession of God's existence. Now, the Catechism will say that the natural inclination for us to believe without revelation actually predisposes us to faith in God's personal revelation. And that's the next area where the Catechism will move, that beyond the natural ways of knowing God, God actually chooses to reveal Himself to us, to enter into relationship with us, to say something about Himself personally to us. And the grace of revelation takes us beyond what our natural understanding could know. It works from the outside, so it's received. And I love the Catechism on this. Grace combats the ways in which our natural dispositions can be disordered. And I'll quote you here. It doesn't allow only for us to see and know what we couldn't know otherwise, but it enlightens our minds to see what is plain or clear with ease, with firm certainty, and no admixture of error. So the grace of revelation goes beyond our capacity to know naturally, but it also perfects our natural gifts of reason and will. So the Catechism, having said, okay, we can know something about God, and then God actually reveals himself to us, the Catechism will push further and say, well, we can actually speak about God to others and actually share our understanding and our knowledge that God has given us with others. In fact, we're commanded to do so as Christians. So we can speak truthfully about God to others. Now, is it perfect? Well, no, because our knowledge of God is limited, as are our words, our language to speak about God. And we have this idea of mystery. And my favorite definition of mystery as it fits in with the understanding of the church is that a mystery isn't something about which we can't know anything. It's something about which we can't know everything. And that's how the church uses the word mystery, the Trinity being the greatest mystery of our faith. But the Catechism will say we can begin speaking about God by looking at the goodness, beauty, and truth of his creation, and especially those things as they're present in the human person, who is a reflection of God in the highest sense, though all things are a reflection of God, his creation. And so we can begin there to talk about things like the grandeur of a mountain, or the diverse yet harmonious colors in a painting or a stained glass window, the innocence and simplicity of an infant. And those are ways that we can speak about God which reflect who he is. So that's 25 through 50. It's a whirlwind, but I think we've covered a good chunk here, and look forward to seeing you all again next week, week 3 of 112, maybe. All right. Thanks very much. This is Brian Fink from the Church of the Resurrection. Have a great day.